Hello and welcome to another episode of the Omics Casts. And today we're going to talk about how can you get your genome sequenced. This is a video cast in response to an article published recently by Emily Mullin entitled, "You can now get your whole genome sequenced for less than an iPhone, but will people buy it? And is all that genetic information actually worth it?" So in this article, they talk about a company, Veritas Genetics, that is a Boston-based company that has, since until very recently, started offering whole genome sequencing directly to the consumers for $9.99, and it's announced that it's now lowering the price to $599 a pop per person. And so this is a direct-to-consumer offering, meaning any private individual can, with permission of a physician, get their whole genome sequence for $5.99. And this will give you a full readout of your DNA. What does whole genome sequencing means in this context? It means that it will spell out your entire DNA sequences, all 3 billion letters, all 6 billion letters, all 3 from your mother and all 3 from your father that recombine and compose your diploid genome. By contrast, most consumer genetic tests, including the 23andMe, Ancestry DNA, MyHeritage DNA offerings, they use a less comprehensive technique called genotyping, which usually is around 1 million positions, 1.5 million sometimes, compared to the 3 billion positions of your genome that's done in a diploid manner for 6 billion letters. And so there's a difference between getting your genome sequence in whole genome sequencing methods versus getting your genome genotyped with a genotyping array like the 23andMe, Ancestry DNA, or MyHeritage DNA approaches. So how much is $599 genome in comparison to what a genome, a human genome costs to sequence now and back in time? Well, at the turn of the millennium, it's where we sequenced the first human genome, and it was done over a period of more than a decade, and it took $2.7 billion, and it was done by an international research effort that got the human genome sequence for the first time. And this means that we generated a base-by-base reference of human genome on top of which other genomes could be mapped and compared to, right? This reference was done once, and it was a composite of about 4 or 5 individuals. And it was actually not complete. There were parts of the genome that weren't annotated, like the centromeres or the telomeres. And it was a groundbreaking bit of science. It was a milestone for humanity to have the first human genome sequenced and assembled and annotated. What happened after that? Well, the next generation sequencing technologies came to the fore and then started lowering the price of sequencing genome scale data sets compared to what it used to cost with capillary technologies. One of these companies, San Diego company Illumina, they themselves a few years ago started offering direct-to-consumer whole genomes themselves. And at the time, the first time they started offering, those were at around $50,000 a pop. And I presume very few people in the world got it sequenced at that point. But the technology improved, and there was a race to the $1,000 genome. Illumina claimed that achievement in 2014, and with their HiSeq X technology, they were able to produce a human genome at around a cost of around $1,000, meaning for someone buying Illumina technology, they were able to extract a whole human genome for about $1,000 price that they would pay in Illumina reagents and machine amortization to Illumina, the company. So that was a big landmark. And then what has happened since then? Well, Veritas whole genome product, which is the My Genome, is targeted at $599. And if a whole genome sequencing at 30x costs $1,000, there's something going on here. What's happening in between, right? First of all, what is the Veritas offering, the My Genome offering? Well, they offer to sequence your genome for you and then to give you information about a bunch of different things, like 200 health conditions, 80 genes, including 20 so-called highly actionable genes, like the BRCA genes that tell you about your risk of breast and ovarian cancer, the long QT syndrome, that's a potentially life-threatening heart rhythm condition. They also report on how effectively you metabolize or react to about 170 drugs from all the genes that you have, all the enzymes that you have encoded in your genome that are used to metabolize different drugs. And so depending on the variant of the genes that you have, the different genotypes, you'll react differently to different drugs when they go into your body. It will also tell you about carrier conditions for about 40 genetic conditions that can be passed to future children. Some well-known examples are cystic fibrosis, hereditary deafness, or Tay-Sachs disease. And My Genome offering by Veritas requires a physician's sign-off. So you can get it from your own doctor, or you can pay an additional $129 to get it authorized from a partner that works with Veritas. So that's $599, and we say that it costs about $1,000 to get the genome at 30x sequenced. Is Veritas making a loss here? Well, back in November, they had an offering of the same My Genome product for $199 as a pre-Thanksgiving promotion. They did this for 1,000 genomes, and it was supposed to last 2 days, but they sold out in the first 6 hours. So this was proof to the company that there is a consumer demand for cheap whole genome sequencing and interpretation. As a comparison, $199 for a whole genome is similar in price to what 23andMe and other companies offer, and they've already successfully sold to about tens of millions of customers, charging $199 for the combined health and ancestry tests, right? So at the time, $199 for the special offer, Veritas was making a loss. They've agreed that that's the case, but they say that at $599 genome, they are making a small profit. So this means that they think they can run this for quite a while and make a small profit, or at least don't make a big loss on it. They say part of this is due to their ability to reduce the cost of sequencing and interpretation analysis based on machine learning and artificial intelligence tools like Google's DeepVariant. So Google DeepVariant, I've talked about this in previous podcasts and videocasts, is a small variant caller that Google has written and made available to people, that works for Illumina data and also MGI-BGI short read technologies. And it's been a game changer in many ways to what people were used to previously from other best-in-breed academic software out there like GATK. And so Google DeepVariant may be making things cheaper for Veritas in allowing them to get almost all the variant calls correctly by sequencing less than 30x coverage, maybe 20x, maybe 15x, we don't know. But it's an estimate based on what they say they can do at a small profit. Veritas says it will make additional money on a new subscription model that they'll roll out soon, and that they will have essentially a monthly fee around the price of a Netflix or Spotify subscription to get regular bulletins about one's genome, updated with the pace of genetic research. And the angle here is that as the science is rapidly increasing, people are interested in staying at the cutting edge of knowing about their genomics and how it affects their lives. And so the more information that public scientific papers provide to the fore, this can be analyzed against your genome that you have in the Veritas database, and then you get updates about what is now known with new scientific information about your genome. How does this compare to other people out there? Well, there's a company called Helix that spun out of Illumina a while ago, and they rolled out their DNA App Store in 2017. And the idea was that you would pay a small fee initially, $80, to sequence your exome, not your genome, your exome, which is about 2% the fraction of your genome. And then there would be an ecosystem of apps there in the Helix platform, so that other companies would sell you information about your exome through their apps. And then Helix, based on this initial direct-to-consumer idea, has pivoted away from the consumer market, and now they say that they want to work instead with healthcare providers. And Color Genomics, which offers 250 genetic cancer risk test, is also going into a similar direction. So what can Veritas do with this? Well, increase the market size. They say that they've sold between 4,000 and 5,000 genomes and direct to individual consumers, that DTC. And they think that at $5.99, they can sell between 15,000 and 20,000 genomes for these many individuals on the consumer side alone. So one aspect of this is how useful will whole genome sequencing direct to consumer be for healthy individuals, right? It's far from clear how useful such tests are for otherwise healthy people. They say most doctors are untrained to communicate complicated and often uncertain genetic results to patients, and it's often hard for physicians to make specific health considerations to patients based off genetic data. What does George Church, Harvard professor and involved in many startups around this area, what does he think about this? He co-founded Veritas ages ago and thinks that genomic sequencing can behave like an insurance policy. In an insurance policy, an insurance will pay you if something bad happens to you. And then he says, here, what you do is that you pay a fraction of that to avoid something bad happening to you, right? Knowing about your health and your predisposition so that you can avoid incurring into any kind of disease. George Church is also involved in another company, Nebula Genomics, that offers a free version of genome sequencing to consumers. And there's a catch here, which is that it's only free if you answer detailed questions about yourself, including family medical history, drinking habits, and then you agree to share this information and your genomic information with researchers that will subsidize the cost of sequencing. The other side is that Nebula's offering is not the same whole genome sequencing at high coverage that Veritas and other people provide, but it's rather a low-pass genome sequencing, meaning at lower coverage, that's a cheaper option, but doesn't provide as much information. The angle for Nebula Genomics is that this low-pass genome and some clever informatic tools like imputation can provide almost as much information as you would from the high coverage version of it. So while experts like George Church can understand what this genetic data means, some in the medical community worry that the health risk information from whole genome sequencing could be confusing, stressful, or even overwhelming, and that people may overreact to it, and they may take necessary preventive measures like getting a mastectomy if they find out that they have a BRCA mutation. So what is the possible gap here from going from whole genome sequencing direct to consumer to knowing about what your genome encodes for and what influence that has on your daily life? Well, these masses of genetic data won't prove it truly useful until healthcare providers can figure out how to deliver the results to patients and how to turn this information into actionable medical advice. So a lot of this can be seen as companies offering you to do the first initial part, which is to obtain the raw data, but then the hard work comes into turning that raw data into actionable medical advice. And this is it. This is the article from Emily Mullin. You can now get your whole genome sequence for less than an iPhone. Now, I've done some calculations here about who's offering what and putting it in context into what the perceived cost, actual cost of performing this is. The first segment is the genotyping offerings. And so 23andMe, if you now go to the website, and I've done this in the UK, so I give you the values in pounds, they offer a test, genotyping test for $149. Ancestry.com, they offer only genealogy ancestry information based on the test. That's probably the same underlying technology, and they offer it for £79 plus shipping. And myheritagedna.com is quite close to ancestry.com, 75 plus shipping. So if it's in the ballpark of $100 or $200, how does this compare to the cost of actually doing this genotyping? Well, a lot of these are done using a genotyping array from Illumina called the Infinium Global Screening Assay, the GSA, which per unit of the array, it can do 48 samples, and it costs about £2,000. So 48,000 at £2,000 per array is about £40 per sample, but that's before any bulk discount, meaning if you buy this in bulk, then Illumina will offer you, in this case, Ancestry.com or 23andMe or myheritagedna.com, a discount on the unit price. So these companies may be running these at 40 or 30 or even 20 if they buy in large bulks per individual, and then they offer it at about double the price. That's one of the reasons why these companies, every once in a while, they can offer big discounts, and they can offer to people the same normal offering, but sometimes even half price at 40 or 45 per unit. And so if you get one of those offers, I think it's quite a good deal, especially for the ones that give you access to the raw data, because then you can apply that data to other websites to get extra information. What about NGS DTC? Well, there's a website called Full Genomes that will offer you a variety of whole genome sequencing at different depths. And so there are 15x offering currently, which is using Illumina HiSeq or NovaSeq technology, runs at 645, and they're probably making a small margin on this. At 20x, it's around $800, and at 30x, it's above $1,000. How does that compare to the cost of doing this? Well, the cost, depending on your amortization of machines and the bulk discounts you get from Illumina, is probably between $600 and $1,000 for the 20 or 30x genome. So Veritas here at $600 to $1,000, maybe somewhere here as well, where they offer maybe a 20x genome or a 15x genome or somewhere in between, and they get a good discount from Illumina from bulk purchases, and then they do some clever algorithmics at the end so that they can get these running at cost or making a small margin. That's how it compares currently, NGS offerings compared to genotyping. It's about 1/5 or 1/10 more of the price, genotyping, or 10 times, 5 or 10 times more expensive to do as an NGS. What do you think about all this? What do you think about direct-to-consumer genomics? What entices you the most about direct-to-consumer genomics? Here is the poll for you, bit.ly/DTC-omics. I welcome your participation in this poll. What entices you the most about direct-to-consumer genomics? Is it learning about your ancestry exclusively, not caring about much else? Learning about your ancestry, but also finding about other curiosities, such as what's your favorite ice cream flavor? Can you taste coriander? Does coriander taste like soap to you? All these clever things that we can find out about our genomes. Learn more about what your well-being and health aspects, and a bit about everything else. Or are you mainly interested in finding about your genetic risks to disease so that you can prevent and prevent for them? Or is it some other motivation that entices you about direct-to-consumer genomics? Go to the link bit.ly/DTC-omics and participate, and we'll see what people feel about this. And this has been another episode of the Omics Cast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to follow this, you can follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Alberto Vilella. I welcome also that you contact me via LinkedIn, tinyurl.com/Vilella LinkedIn. And as a reminder, this slide deck is available upon request. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon in the next episode of the Omics Cast. Until then,